Thoughtful Connections, a memory care podcast, aims to provide general information and insights about dementia and related topics. The content shared is not intended to be medical advice or a substitute for professional medical or clinical guidance. The purpose or goal of this podcast series is to help inform and educate family members considering memory care for a loved one. With us, as always, is Elizabeth Thompson, Arrow Senior Living Regional Director of Memory Care.
Hello, Elizabeth. It is great to see you as always.
It's good to see you too, Charlie.
Well, thank you. I'm glad that we color coordinated today.
I know.
I'm glad. I thought I might have sent that memo a little bit late, but obviously you got it.
Yes.
Oh, what a great response. Okay. All right. Well, tell me, how's your family?
They're good.
Good. You know, and
how's yours?
I don't know. I haven't seen them in a while, but I assume they're good. I haven't received any text or calls, so we'll take that as a good.
Okay.
Deal. All right. So, aren't family dynamics the most interesting thing?
Oh, gosh. Yes.
I have come to the conclusion that there is no such thing as a normal family.
Oh, I would have to agree 1,000%.
Absolutely. So with that said, we're going to discuss dementia in the family in this session.
It's an important conversation. Dementia never just affects just one person. I mean, it affects the entire family system, friends, neighbors, everybody.
Oh, yes, anyone that's around for sure.
Yeah.
So let's start at the beginning with the diagnosis. So after a dementia diagnosis, what are the most common emotional responses that families experience?
Shock, fear, denial for sure, sadness, and, there's even grief for the future because it's unknown and uncertainty about what's coming. Sometimes for guilt, feeling overwhelmed or like I should have been there last year more. I think all of those emotions are normal and valid. Another one that we see is, does this mean I'm going to get it?
Sure. I think that's just natural to think that, don't you?
Yeah.
So are there misconceptions or about dementia that families commonly have?
Yes. I think we're getting better. But I think one of the biggest is thinking that dementia is just a normal part of aging. It's just old age, and that it's only about memory loss. And it's about so much more. Dementia affects communication. It affects behavior, personality, relationships, mood, and then eventually the full body. I mean, your brain controls everything. So I think addressing those misconceptions early is power. It helps families set more realistic expectations and reduces frustration and helps them to plan better.
So let's do a little digging into relationships. All right. So how does dementia change relationships between spouses and children or even siblings?
Yeah, that role shifts dramatically. A spouse may become a caregiver. A lot of times the spouse becomes the caregiver. Children sometimes are put in those decision-making roles. And then sometimes you have children that just kind of want to deny that it's even happening and don't help at all.
Sure.
Siblings may experience conflict. So, you may have, a brother and a sister that think opposite on what mom should have as far as care goes. And so conflicts and responsibilities feel uneven. You have, just all kinds of family drama that can start because of that. These changes can be emotionally challenging because they alter the long-term relationship dynamics. How did your role change? Because you cared for your mom.
I did indeed. And, I gave that some thought. And, during that time, I was still farming. and mother was still living at the hub of the farming operation. And whenever she really started showing signs of dementia, and I'm guessing it was probably over a period of maybe less than a year.
Mm-hmm.
I went from handling her finances and checking on her well-being, several times a day, to managing her medication, to cooking all her meals, to doing laundry and overseeing her personal hygiene. So it was a fairly fast progression, for me and for what I was involved with. And I thought I was doing everything's right at the time, but being the dutiful son, thinking I was doing things right, but I was wrong, looking back.
Well, I think we do the best that we can with what we've been given and what we are aware and educated on.
Sure.
I know there's so many different emotions. I think it's important that we process all the different emotions, and relationships are so different. But in our family, with my mom being married to someone who is having brain changes, and she was always very involved in our lives, in the kids' lives, my kids' lives. I have some anger, and I love my stepfather dearly. He's been a wonderful stepfather to me, but I have some anger because I feel like since this has happened, Mom doesn't have near to do with her kids as she used to, because she can't. And it's like, I understand it, but I'm still mad about it, and that's not necessarily right, but it's an honest, I'm being transparent, it's an honest feeling.
Sure. That dementia has taken her away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way. It's taken our mom away. It's taken my kid's grandma away.
Yeah. So what challenges do you see caregivers facing as these roles change?
Caregivers often struggle with role reversal, emotional exhaustion, balancing just the whole caregiving work and family life. Many adult children feel like they're parenting their parent, and that can bring grief and guilt. And then it changes again when you do end up, if you have the finances to find placement for your person who's living with dementia, that role changes again, because then let's just say you've been wife, now you're caregiver, and now you've placed your husband in a community. So now how does your role change? Now you're no longer caregiver, and you're kind of no longer wife because he doesn't remember you.
You may still be married.
Yeah.
And technically a wife, but you're not playing that wife role.
Right. And so it's just, there's so many changes, and it's this emotional roller coaster of different role changes that can wreak havoc emotionally on someone.
Right. So, of course, as dementia progresses, we're all aware of that.
Yes.
And so how can families maintain meaningful connections? How can different family members, how can they do that?
So as the disease progresses, connection shifts from conversation to just being present. As that disease progresses, music, touch, routines, photos, simply just being there sometimes can be incredibly meaningful for that person and for the other person as well. But the key is meeting the person where they are. They are not where they used to be, and realizing for the caregiver that they can't pour from an empty cup, and they're going to have to refill their cup before they can help somebody else.
Sure.
I mean, I think about that analogy of the airplane and the oxygen mask. They always say, put it on yourself, then put it on your child. And that's so true.
Yeah. I know a lot of times families deal with grief even while their loved one is still alive.
Yes.
What advice do you have for them and how to deal with that?
It's called ambiguous loss. I feel like that's one of the hardest parts of dementia. It's important that we acknowledge that grief, that we seek support for that grief. Don't minimize it. Talk openly about it. Allow that space for mixed emotions. I think that's essential. Denying it isn't going to help you any, and the end is still going to come regardless if you want it to or not. So you might as well try and process those emotions as they come, so that it's not this big emotional dump at the end. You know what I mean? Process it gradually and as it changes, because it's going to change. And that's really true for anybody in any situation. I know that there were some things that I went through in my childhood that I processed as, a young adult in my early 20s and had to go to therapy and things like that. But then as I became a mom, those things kind of started coming back. It was just in a different light. And so I had to process them all over again, but as a mom. And so I think it's the same thing when we're caring for someone who's living with dementia. Those challenges are going to be different at different times in our lives, but it will be crucial to our mental stability to process those and have some help to manage those emotions and get help where we need help.
I've heard it described more than once that, a person living with dementia heard it described as, I lost mom or I lost dad. I lost them twice.
Yep.
I lost them with the diagnosis. And as they were progressing, I lost them along the way. I lost them again when they passed.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a double whammy. And that's why I think I have such a passion for, educating people on dementia, because you don't even have that with other diseases, because mentally that person is still there. But I think it's important to remember that they're still them. They're just different. And that this is a disease of the brain. The brain is dying. The person cannot help the changes that are happening. It's not their fault that these changes are happening. And it's not a reflection of your relationship that they're happening. But that takes someone helping you process all of that.
Sure.
You
don't necessarily have to do it on your own.
No.
It's okay to get support and help.
I think that it's very important. It's almost crucial to get help from someone else, because
Right.
you can't do that on your own. I mean, and maybe you can, but if you don't have to, don't.
You shouldn't have to, but
Yeah.
it can be done.
Yeah.
Trust me, it can be.
Yeah, I know.
So you hit on this earlier, but hit it on again. Conflicts, can arise, between families around caregiving and about decisions on the best type of caregiving, maybe. And so, how can families? What's the best way for them to manage that?
Clear communication is crucial. Family meetings. I love, COVID was not fun. However, I think it has the Zoom and Teams meetings and Skype visits that we can have now that we didn't do before are very helpful in situations like this, because many times, you've got the person who is seeing, I'll just say you've got the one daughter that lives in town who's seeing the changes all the time and not really seeing a big jump in cognitive change. And then you've got the brother that lives out of state that comes to visit at Christmas time and is like, what is going on with mom? Like, she's so different. And so coming together and having those conversations together, I think is very important. Involving professionals, whether it's caregivers or, you've got speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, if they're involved, if they could be a third party. We have to focus on what's best for the person living with dementia, because they can't change. We still can change and make changes. Sometimes that third party can make all of the difference in the world. I know even in some of our communities, the family doesn't want to even hear it from the director of wellness or the memory care director. They want to hear it from someone else. So as a regional support, I've had to be on Zoom calls with families before. Okay, I'm the professional, or
you have the title. Hear me speak.
I hate that, but yes, sometimes for whatever reason, the memory care director will know just as much, and the DOW will know just as much as I do. But sometimes just coming from a different or outside source makes a difference to the family. Of hey, these are dementia changes that are happening. This is a decline in their disease process. Sometimes that's what it takes.
Right. So I know you'd mentioned, different therapies. Talk about some other professional help that would be available to families navigating dementia.
Yeah. Your doctors, your neurologists, social workers, dementia care specialists, like myself, care managers. Families can access this additional help through their healthcare providers, through senior living communities, nonprofit organizations. I had mentioned Senior Age earlier. Even resources through the Alzheimer's Association. There's lots of opportunities to get the resources that you need.
Okay. Well, let's talk about, again, we always mention support groups, educational programs. Let's take just a minute, delve into what Arrow Senior Living has to offer. Okay. And let's take just a minute to toot our own horn a little bit.
Toot toot.
There you go. I was very good. That was on cue even. And so let's talk about what we have to offer, and then let's talk about a little bit a broader scope about where folks might look for support and education, where family members can find help.
Yeah. So at Arrow Senior Living, I just feel like we do an incredible job. If you live near one of our communities, we have in-person dementia education that happens every month. Our memory care directors go through PowerPoints that I've created and help educate families on different aspects of the disease, different types, different ways to communicate. Just there's over 30 different PowerPoints I think that we have. And so if you are local to one of our communities, that's something that you could certainly be a part of. They are free and open to anyone. We also do those virtually. Myself and my regional team, we alternate. I do it every month and then they alternate. So we have 2 virtual dementia educations every month that are advertised on Facebook. Reach out to the podcast with your email address if you want us to sign you up for them, because those happen twice a month, usually in the evenings when people are off work, and they're free and open to anybody and everything. This podcast is a great way to learn more about dementia. And I think when we finish season 3, we'll have over
82, I believe.
Holy
at the end of this season.
Cow,
yes.
That's crazy.
And there is quite a library of topics.
Yeah.
So if you have a certain topic or a certain interest, about dementia or memory care, just scroll through that library and have a look-see.
Yeah.
And just start wherever you want. You don't have to start at the beginning.
And that's I love that about it. You don't have to start someplace. Just hop in wherever. Pick the topics that apply to you, because maybe not all of them do.
Absolutely. And get hooked.
Get
hooked on
Hooked on Thoughtful Connections, a memory care podcast.
Please continue.
Yeah, I don't do as well as you do on that part. I don't have
you
that.
were just an octave or too high, I think.
I don't have that radio voice. We also at Arrow have Sandy McGatha, our licensed clinical social worker, who offers a support group virtually. So it doesn't matter where you are. If you have a phone with Wi-Fi, you can hop onto her support groups that are offered every week for free, open to anyone. We also have blogs that you do a great job with on every single community's page, website page, that offer all kinds of insight and advice about different topics related to dementia. So, yeah, Arrow does a stellar job.
Yeah, I think that is right. We tried to cover all different medias, and try to make easy access, for people to find, and we often link back and forth, to each other. So certainly, we want, and it's not just for families that have loved ones in our communities.
Oh, right. Yeah. No, I mean, and that's the thing. Like we've talked about on some of our podcasts, not everybody has the financial means to move into a community. And so regardless of if a person lives with us or not, we still want to be that resource. We want to be that resource for education, for hope, and just help navigating the disease process. And so, I feel like Arrow does a great job, because when we do see it as when someone moves into our community, we're taking care of not that person, but also the family, because it's a whole family affair.
So besides the Arrow support and education pieces, what are some other places that folks might turn to?
So there are, depending on where you live, your state may have different opportunities for you to tap into. So I would definitely reach out and see what's available in your state, but also the Alzheimer's Association. They have, it's alz.org, I believe, alz.org, but they have support groups all over the world. And even different topic related support groups. A lot of times we used to think the Alzheimer's Association was just about Alzheimer's. And we now know that, yes, Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of dementia, but there are many other types, and they tap into the other types as well as give links for additional help for the other types. But your Parkinson's Foundation, your Lewy Body Dementia organization. There's all different types of dementia, and they usually all have support groups and help that you can reach out to. And I don't know of any that costs money, so that's a bonus too. And check your local libraries and churches. I have presented at local libraries before different dementia education topics, just as volunteer work, and then also at some churches. So there's opportunities out there that are free. Lots of nonprofit groups that have started too. So
I think one thing we didn't mention, and is relatively new, is that we actually have books now.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
So talk about those.
Yes. So we have started Dementia Resource Library in all of our communities. And we have started putting books in these libraries for family members to check out, look at, read, that are all books that have been vetted by our regional memory care team. So they're books that we think are really good.
Really relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And very helpful. And we just added one. And I am not prepared. I cannot think of the name of the book, but we talked about it at our Memory Care Growth Summit. And somebody had said, it's the best book ever. And it's about kids and how they deal with, grandma or grandpa forgetting. And it's something about the remember balloons. I cannot remember. I wish I had that information.
That's
Sorry.
all right. Well, I kind of put you on the spot.
Yeah, you did, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm used to it.
Chalk one up for Charlie.
Chuck, yeah, Charlie's.
I got her.
He's my trigger. But no, it's a great book. And so, yeah, we've got books not just for caregivers, but even children, because they're seeing changes with grandma or grandpa.
As we mentioned right off the top there, we talk about it. It affects everyone.
It does.
Not this. We're talking about families with dementia. So I'm glad we were able to tie that in.
Yeah.
So let's go back to caregivers, and again, we talk about them almost every podcast. So what are some of the greatest challenges that they face as part of the family group?
A lot of times they have guilt and they feel like they're not doing enough. Definitely burnout and isolation. But many caregivers neglect their own needs, and that can impact their health, but also the quality of care that they're providing for that person. Multiple families I've seen. I can't even count the number of people that were maybe going to move in as a couple, and right before they moved in as a couple in independent living, the caregiving spouse of the one who had dementia passes away or has this massive stroke. It happens so frequently. It's really quite scary. And so thinking about that, what are you doing to care for yourself as a caregiver? Because, again, you can't pour from an empty cup, and that stress of being a 24/7, 365 caregiver, it takes a toll on your body.
So how can they provide for their own mental health?
I think asking for help, setting boundaries, again, taking breaks, and without guilt. Self-care is not selfish. And I've even learned that with my job, trying to set better boundaries and have some sort of, work-life balance. It's the same thing when you're caregiving. Unfortunately, only the caregiver, only the employee can set those boundaries. I can be frustrated all day about something, but I'm the only one that can make a difference. And so that caregiver is the only one who can make those changes. So make them, and don't feel guilty about it, because you have to take care of yourself. It's not an option. If you want to continue providing great care, you've got to take care of you.
Because that brother or sister may not be willing to step in and take your place.
Exactly.
It's very likely it's up to you to make it happen.
Yeah. And so just, even small moments of rest or getting outside or taking a little walk by yourself, those things are crucial.
Also, we've talked about previously, communication often becomes very difficult as the disease progresses. What are the best ways to connect with that loved one?
Touch. And we've talked about the power of touch in one of our podcasts before, but nonverbal communication becomes extremely important when that person is no longer able to communicate like they were before. Your facial expressions, your tone, body language, speak slowly, approach slowly, keep it simple. Less is more. So the more words you try to use, the more confusing that could be. So just keep your speech simple. Focus on the emotion part over what you're actually saying.
So carrying on with that, if families, of course, they've always had joy and connection with their loved one, how can they continue to do that?
So joy doesn't disappear. It just looks different. And I think that you have to focus on the small wins at that point, whether it's smiles or laughter, shared music, holding hands. Just appreciate the little moments of joy. A great book that I've plugged before, Creating Moments of Joy with Jolene Brackey, is a great way to learn how to appreciate those little moments and even help create some of those little moments.
Oh, nice. Okay. So you've seen families take this journey, multiple families.
Mm-hmm.
Are there some common lessons that you've seen them learn along the way?
I've heard many different things. I've heard, if I can get through this, I can get through anything.
Okay.
They learn patience, compassion, the power of presence, just being there. Because there will come a time when that person, like we've talked about, isn't able to communicate, may not recognize you, but just being there with them is so important, and we realize the value in that. Dementia teaches us that love isn't about memory; it's about connection.
Mm-hmm. Maybe as simple as holding hands.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, knowledge is power. I say that all the time, but continue listening to podcasts, read books, and there's other podcasts besides ours.
Hundreds of them, literally.
Yeah, there's a bunch. Practicing that self-care. And the more knowledge you have about the disease process and kind of where you're heading in this world of dementia, the more confident you'll feel in managing this. And so also remember, supporting families through dementia is a team effort. It takes everybody. Put aside your differences and help.
Absolutely. Well, Elizabeth, thank you for sharing some great information on dementia and the family.
Thanks for having me, Charlie.
You bet. And thank you all for sharing your time with us.
At Arrow Senior Living, we believe in the power of a chuckle, maintaining a childlike sense of wonder, and defending the dignity of others. Until next time, this is Charlie Johnson with Arrow's Thoughtful Connections, a memory care podcast, wishing you fond memories filled with moments of joy. And remember, if you've met one person with dementia, you've met one person with dementia.
You can find Thoughtful Connections, a memory care podcast, anywhere you listen to podcasts.